something more liberal, you know, friends and comrades. So the friendship and comradeship began then. Of course, when June 4th happened, he was not in Ghana then, I believe, and he came down. He was opposed to it in its, then that was a matter of principle. I was for it, no, but it didn't distort or dilute the friendship and comradeship that we had forged. And I think going forward, somewhere 78 or 79, thereabout, I need to check the records. I really didn't know we'll go to this deep, but we ended up being like family. He moved into my father's residence in Laboni. My stepmother was a bit uncomfortable initially, but my father was all for it, especially when he realized that this is friendship and comradeship based on something substantive. He was a politician himself, ideologically too to the left, and I'm not sure if I've talked with you this before, but when he was interrogating and I mentioned the name Pratt, he appeared to have had knowledge of Kwesi's father, trade unionism and things. He felt more relaxed that, look, why not? So Kwesi became part and parcel of the household. And I used to go to Tamai a lot. You know, my elder sister was married to a ship owner, a Dutch, and you know, they used to bring in all sorts of containers and things. And those days too, the economy was harsh. My one's pocket was always empty. So I made Tema like a second home, living with my elder sister, so that I looked after the house. They travel a lot too, so anytime they traveled, I had to go and stay there. So virtually, I shared the same bedroom with Kwesi here, but I was mostly out because looking for cash for both political and social activities. So that's what happened. I mean, and since then, our friendship moved also very political. The coincidence of believing in the same Pan-Africanism, Chromaism, and all the rest helped to keep us together. So we ended up, in spite of the fact that he didn't support the AFIC in terms of its emergence, characteristics, and things, the friendship continued. We ended up having meetings with the Boache Jan and the rest, you know, which he was a friend with. So the networking became stronger and deeper. That led us eventually to formation of the group we call Movement on National Affairs, MONAS. We launched a newspaper. Before then, we used to do what you call agitation and propaganda, you know, leaflets and all those things, tech play and all that. It was like citizen journalism of a sort. But he was a professional in terms of journalism training. So when we launched the newspaper called Frontline Message, later became The Message, or the Message, we tapped into his professional skills. At one stage, I think he was a consultant, if I check the back at the imprint, whilst I was editor. That was because he then had the professional competence to guide the movement's newsletter. You know, it deepened. Post the Liman regime, yes, in fact, during the Liman regime, the friendship was still intact. The comradeship was still intact. I did not become a member of the PNP, even though I supported the PNP. We used to have a party called the People's Revolutionary Party, which was led by Johnny Hansen, one of the greatest Nkrumahist that I've ever encountered. He was a lawyer, a close friend of mine too, but far older than me. He was our leader, People's Revolutionary Party, PRP. But somewhere along the line, he was enticed to cross carpet to join the PNP. And so we got angry, a lot of fury. And we formed what we call the rejectionist bloc, PRP rejectionist bloc, that will not go into thing. Our commitment was to the constitutional system, that we agreed with the elective principle. We agreed that the Liman regime party had won, and that ought to be respected. But in terms of ideological purity, we had differences here and there. You know. Post that, our friendship and comradeship grew further. You can take it. We all went to jail anyway, post the PNDC coup d'etat. I came back.
Were you in the same prison?
No,
okay.
1986, we were sent to the BNI together, myself, Kwesi Pratt, may he rest in peace, and Raf Kube. He was CDR, a CDR member. So sometimes I wondered how other us, who were known opponents, but somehow the four of us, they took us through the public tribunal, then at State House. It was as if we were going to be prosecuted. Subsequently, we were sent to Sherford. That's where we met Charles Taylor and the rest.
Of Liberia?
Yes, of Liberia.
Okay.
He was in custody. He was in Sherford. So, well, and the Gokas, Mauli Goka, Chanajan, and the rest. So, well, prison solidarity, it opens your mind. You interrogate issues, you get closer, you know, when you've suffered the same culture. You know. So it's gone on and on and on. Come MFJ, and that's the interesting point. I wasn't actively involved in terms of daily activities, but Kwesi will confirm, I used to play a background role, more or less like intelligence gathering and all those things. That's how come Dubois in his famous letters to Kwesi found their way into my custody.
Okay.
It's really, I'm not sure. Kwesi, do you have copies? I must do justice, then I can keep what I have. Otherwise, justice would and fairness would demand I make copies for him. Very, very insightful.
Anyway, I'll come to that later.
Very insightful pieces of records, you know, which I will ask him his permission to include in my
book. Okay.
Yes, I'll be asking him permission and I'll source it.
Okay.
But you'll be destroying.
Oh, check, not in full text. I mean,
you redact.
Exactly.
If it's published, it will destroy a certain historical narration that people have been given. It will destroy it completely.
But shouldn't we do that? It should be done.
No, the man was telling us to be factual and truthful. I'm taking a cue from him.
Right.
Anyway, that's a joke.
Yeah.
I would never use it unless I wouldn't. You buy that. Oh, I don't show it to any friend before. Yeah, but it's
that
well
was the
kept.
condition on which I gave it to you.
So it's well kept, you know. And then, of course, came the agitation for constitutional restoration. There were various groups that were formed. We still had the People's Popular Party for Democracy and Development, PPDD. You know, we were in our heritage, which subsequently became People's Heritage Party. Of course, we all eventually got together under the umbrella of the Great Alliance Project with the Akai and Kufuor. Them, you know. That's where I was part of his campaign team virtually for, is it Ayawaso Central?
Ayawaso Central, yes.
You know. So we've kept it. AFC came, Alliance for Change came, who were founding members of that movement. And we have this mutual respect that informs our friendship and comradeship. There are people I've heard, there are a lot of people who think we don't communicate. There are a lot of people who think we are virtually enemies. Not true. I mean, we've grown. We are not kids. Because he's about a year older than me, if I'm right.
Yes.
You know? I'm 70, going to be 71. He will be moving to 72. My philosophy of life is that we move on. You look back to see how lessons could be learned in order not to fracture friendships and things, but we move on because we all have families. In fact, his children are like my children.
I was going to ask about a certain relationship with Kwesi's sons.
Yes, they are friends. I love them. And it's also because of the history, you understand? So I'm not sure where they are now because they haven't been in touch for a while. But you'd be surprised that there were occasions anytime they were in the jurisdiction, they look for me and come to see me, the boys, the twins.
Yes.
Yes, and don't forget the twins were in jail. I think we were in prison.
Yeah.
Yes.
When they were born.
Yes.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, right.
And even that was part of what, grows your friendship. Because here we were inside and knowing that one colleague's wife is expecting, and then the news about twins and all. It's difficult, but also helpful in many positive ways, So those who think we are not in touch, last night or just before night, he sent me a WhatsApp on this Polisario thing, which I checked and realized that he was right. Indeed, he sends me constantly. You are here, you are my witness. If you check my WhatsApp, consistently he sends me messages, some on very serious, diplomatic, foreign policies and all the rest. And we share our views on it. So we are in constant touch. That's true. And
so it means you're still conniving.
It smells conspiracy.
You're still conniving and conspiring.
There's a hint of conspiracy. Where we have reached, we can't do otherwise.
Right.
We are just friends, comrades. We have differences on certain issues, which I'm not sure ought to be displayed here. That's not the spirit behind this intercourse, So I would avoid those things. But otherwise, friends and comrades, we still are.
Was he filling the gaps for me?
No, I think that what Kweku has said is true. I mean, I met him and others in the middle of 1970, where I was working at the National Youth Council as the head of public relations. And the first meeting was quite controversial. I mean, I was in charge of registering youth organizations, but the authorities would not register the Socialist Revolutionary Youth
League of Ghana
because of socialism. So there was a huge battle, and I was in the middle of this battle, and eventually that battle was won, and the Socialist Revolutionary Youth League of Ghana was registered, So my relationship with Kweku and all the others, was actually firmed on a commitment to socialism, and it has been throughout, There's one thing that is very significant for me, and that has to do with our days at Osherford Prison. And I remember that Chemejan and others were executed. They were picked from the Osherford prison and they were executed, later. And I remember that dawn when they were leaving the prison, they actually made sure that we heard they were going to be executed. They were being taken away to be executed. And I remember Mauli Goka telling us that they were on their way, they were going to be killed that day, and that we should carry on the fight. And that was an extraordinary act of courage. And that has lived with me throughout, I mean, the fact that they knew they were going to be executed, they were on their way to the firing squad, and they still had the courage, to encourage us to carry on with the struggle and so on. Something I can never forget. And all of us were in the Osherford prison, at the time. I mean, the relationship between Kweku and I has gone beyond friendship. I mean, now I don't see Kweku as a friend. I mean, I see him as more or less a brother.
Sure.
And we have disagreed on many issues before. I mean, and still sometimes we do disagree. I mean, for example, on the question of the AFRC.
Sure.
I mean, the June 4th event happened at the time that I was in Philadelphia. I wasn't in Ghana, I was in Philadelphia. And I came back immediately. And at the time, I was the interviewer on this program in town.
Rather.
Hosted by Emilia Krumwala Dama. So 2 days after my arrival from Philadelphia, I'm sitting on television and I'm disagreeing with the AFRC and saying that it was not a revolution and condemning the executions and so on, 2 days after my arrival from Philadelphia. And that was one point of disagreement. But largely, we have agreed until 2007, 6, thereabout, we had virtually agreed, on many of the issues, if not all of the issues. So he's a brother. I mean, this is a guy in whose bed I slept, we lived together and so on, and did so many things that today I'm not sure we would be able to do. I mean, one of the things, Kweku, if you remember, was when we decided to arm ourselves.
Sure.
We actually decided to arm ourselves, and I constantly carried a revolver and so on, because of the times, and we thought that it was necessary to arm ourselves, and we did arm ourselves and so on. So we've been through a lot. I think that even at our ages, there's still a lot that we are going to go through as friends, as brothers. I think that there's a lot that we are going to go through as Ghanaian people and so on. And perhaps there's a need to insist on a certain mutual respect, And you see, for those on the fringes, those on the periphery and so on, sometimes they make so many mistakes. I mean, Randy, I still keep my relationship with former President Kufuor very, very close. I visit him, we have conversations. In spite of the fact that when he was in office, I mean, at some point, really, he came under my fire because I disagreed with him. And in spite of the huge role that I think I played in getting him elected as president. So we're going to be talking about transition. The transition in 2000 to 2001 was not easy at all. Sure. It was a very difficult transition. A lot of people today say that it was a smooth transition, it was an indication of how democracy works and so on. It's not true. There were forces at that time who had sworn that there would be no handover of power to President Kufuor. We had to do so many things, in order to neutralize them. And for the first time, let me say that we succeeded with considerable help from somebody like Captain Kweku Baako. If it hadn't been for him, it was not possible to get that smooth transition. So the credit for that smooth transition actually goes to Captain Kweku Baako. So maybe we'll talk about these things later. But Kweku, accept my respect. I mean, this opportunity has been.
I have one question for you, Kweku. One question.
Randy.
Yes, one question. Let him answer.
I would never.
Yes.
And I'm telling you honestly, I would never have agreed to be on a panel like this.
Yes.
I mean, it's been requested over a long period of time. I've always refused. Because I don't think that public discourse should be reduced to a circus or a football match with cheering supporters behind, or a boxing match or something. I think it should be elevated to a certain level. I agreed to participate in this program this morning, only out of respect for you.
Thank you very much.
And because I feel that it is necessary to honor the role that you have played on this program and in general. Otherwise, I would never do that.
I appreciate it.
I mean, the request has been made over and over again. People want to see me and Kweku sitting together and arguing so they can take sides and cheer and declare winners and so on. I'm not a gladiator. I'm not a boxer.
That's a
At
good
least
shot.
I want to be a serious person who reflects on issues and so on. I don't want to engage in this useless, contest. And so on.
I had the same sentiments when you called me. I also ended up saying that, but for you, and the fact that it's your final act, I would not do it because people have different things. And sometimes you go on social media, there are two people, and they are giving percentages. Oh, this one won, this one lost. I mean, that's not what we were made for. Of course, I've been Kwesi on Newsfile, GBC Big Breakfast Show, and GBC Breakfast Show. Yes.
Kakra Samoa, it reminded me this morning that I had both of you on what you used to do on Joy. What's the name of that?
Crossfire.
Crossfire.
Yes. Crossfire.
Yeah.
That's true.
So Kakra Samoa reminded me this morning that
we've done it before, and it was always based on respect, mutual understanding, and where we disagree.
I'll still ask the question I want to ask you.
Please do.
So how come that despite the fact that you guys were like twins and everything, was he married early? You married late.
Lack of
Is this a question? Is it a question to ask?
Allow him to answer.
Lack of self-discipline.
Okay.
I was virtually a rolling stone. I was a rolling stone. And that affected my opportunities to access
So-
a decent woman.
so that's-
Thankfully,
yes.
I got a woman, just the right fit for purpose.
That's why you are still paying school fees.
Say it again.
When Kwesi has grandchildren.
Kolegono. Kole Lagoon.
Yes.
Do you understand
They
it?
took a lot of them.
Exactly.
That's why you don't drive past there. Because you hear daddy, daddy.
Yes. Brother. But we are lucky.
Yes,
I'm saying I'm lucky. I'm sitting here.
By the grace of God.
Yes. Focusing on journalism, practice of journalism, focusing on politics, public advocacy, actually took me out of a certain realm. Things that I was doing.
You know, I mean, Kweku asked if I still have copies of the letters that Obuahine wrote to me. I made only one copy of those letters, and I gave them to him. On condition that they would never be disclosed, never be published, and so on.
But that highlights your level of trust for him.
Yeah, he's the only person I gave copies to.
Okay.
You know, I think maybe one or two people read it,
But he
they
didn't give them
never had
copies.
Because
Okay.
he's the only person I gave copies to. And there's one particular letter which is very, very revealing. So very revealing, you know. If he wants permission to publish it, why not? I mean, it's been so many years, he can publish it. So
Are the people involved dead?
a lot of them will be dead.
Okay.
You know, so he can
You
publish
know why
it.
I asked you that question?
You know, I mean, no problem at all. He can publish it.
It's one of the constraints I face.
Yes.
My problem is that my documents are not as well organized as Kweku. You know, so you find my documents in briefcases. And even today, if I were to trace those letters, it would take me weeks to find it.
Okay.
So, Kweku, you promised to give me a copy, I would have it. I have a copy, but it's...
No,
it's
to make it readily available.
to make
Sure.
it readily available, because I've been talking about that letter, and I think it's important to refresh my memory.
All right.